want a motherboard. You know, people think I'm a computer whiz, but I just know how to use them. I mean, I guess that's cool. But the thing is, I want to know how they work. Some people just tell you that it's just too complicated. But my parents have always said that if you're smart enough to know the question, you're smart enough to get an answer. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna find out how this thing works. We're gonna ask this thing a question and see where it sends us to get the answer. Scary thing is, I really don't know where it's gonna take us, but hey, what's life without a little adventure? Special effect can't hurt you, right? Okay. Let's do computers. Ah! Yeah, I know. It's gotta be in the form of a question. It's like a game show. Okay. How do computers work? Great, what am I supposed to do now?
Go down the aisle to the 4th desk on the left.
You can talk.
Of course I can. Special effects don't have to be dumb, do they?
No, it's just, well, I mean, I'm surprised, that's all.
Come on now, get moving. The person you want is in the 3rd cubicle on the left.
Wait a minute here. You said it was the 4th.
Oh, sorry, it's my fuzzy logic acting up again.
Sure, right, whatever.
Nope, I have the test schedule right up here on my screen. I like the changes that you made. Okay, one moment. Hi, Tim. I'm Ann. Welcome to Intel. I'll be right with you. Listen, this sounds fine, but I'll need the test results on that chip first thing in the morning. All right, bye. Glad you can make it, Tim. Now, remind me, why are you here?
To find out how computers work.
Well, you've come to the right place. How do you think they work?
I don't know. I guess they're like electronic brains.
Electronic brains? Okay, are computers like electronic brains?
Ah!
Dr. Valentino, to the OR, please.
Hey, wait, where are you taking me? Stop!
It's all right, Tim. We're just going to do a little surgery to see how a computer works.
But wait a minute here. I'm not a computer, I've got a brain.
But you said that a computer is like a brain. I thought we'd do some exploratory surgery to see if you're right.
No, they're different.
How are they different?
Brains are, squishy. No, wait, stop. Computer wouldn't care where it was going. And they don't think.
That's right. Computers don't think. They can't feel. They're machines that do math really fast. Everything that you do on a computer, painting, drawing, word processing, accounting, it's all possible simply because computers can process numbers.
So, all computers do is math.
That's right. Oh, I really wanted to use my new cranial cracker, but I guess we'll have to cancel the operation.
You know, you really had me going there for a sec. How'd you know my name anyways?
This is a movie, Tim. Anything can happen. Hi, Tim. I didn't think that you were going to make it.
Hey, me too. You weren't really gonna cut open my head, were you?
This is the PC Systems Lab. I thought it would be a good place for you to find out how computers really work.
This isn't like some sort of audience participation thing, right? I mean, you're just gonna show me how computers work.
Relax, Tim. Actually, I thought you could show me.
Me?
Well, we can work it out together. I think you're going to find that computers are simpler than you think. There are 4 basic parts to a computer. Your job is to fill in these squares.
I don't know how.
Hi, you're Tim, right? I'm Joseph. Now, pretend you've never heard of a computer before, but you want to make a machine that does what a computer does.
Can you tell us what you could do on your machine?
Yeah, you could play games, and you could write letters through word processing, and you can draw pictures, you know, stuff like that.
Good. But what is the machine doing?
Well, it's changing words and numbers, I'd guess. It's changing information.
We call it information processing.
And what kind of parts would an information processing machine need?
Well, you'd need a way to put information in the machine, like a keyboard.
Right. A keyboard is a type of input device, and so is a mouse and a scanner. Type input into the first box.
What else?
Well, I type in the information, and it shows up on the monitor. And that's output, right?
See, this isn't so hard. What other types of output are there?
Speakers or printers.
You don't have to be a brain surgeon to figure this stuff out. And when you put information into a computer, where does it go?
Guess there's some place where it stores stuff.
It doesn't memorize things the way you do, but it does store information in a part called memory. Disk drives and CD-ROMs are 2 kinds of memory. Now, what do you think goes in the 4th square?
Well, I use input to put information into the computer, and memory is where the information is stored. And output is where I get different information out. So there must be a place where information is processed or changed.
That's it, an information processor.
Right.
We call it a microprocessor. Let's see if we can use your list to build a computer. Now, Joseph has the input and the output devices. Can you find any memory in here?
Hey, look. Disk drive.
A disk drive is 1 kind of memory. But to work well, a computer needs 2 kinds. Can you find anything else?
You're taking Mr. Peterson's science class, right, Tim?
Yeah.
And Peterson still uses those big old heavy textbooks, doesn't he?
Sure.
Well, a disk drive stores lots of information, just like Mr. Peterson's books. It may take a while to find what you want, but it's all there. Now, these are called random access memory, or RAM. They hold less information than a disk drive, but they access that information really fast. Computers store frequently used data in RAM.
So, if a disk drive is like the textbook, then RAM is like the lessons Mr. Peterson gives on the board.
Perfect. And when the lesson is over, he just changes what's on the board. Computer does the same thing with the information in its RAM each time you change the program.
Now, what about a microprocessor? Can you find that?
Here it is. Looks like a Pentium processor. Hey, this is a fresh chip.
How did you know that?
I wasn't born yesterday. I made a movie about these things.
All right, you're right. It's a microprocessor.
We didn't go into this, but you also need a power supply to convert electricity into a form that won't fry the computer's delicate circuits.
So, do we have everything we need to build a computer?
I don't know, you tell me.
Well, we need something to connect all these parts together.
Like wires, right?
Right. This part contains all the wires and connectors we need to carry information around inside the computer.
Hey, this is where I started.
That's right, it's the motherboard. Check out the wires.
Hey, cool. So can you put it together now? Whoa, fast forwarding is exhausting.
Okay, give it a try. Oh, hold on one sec. Safety considerations. I think you've had enough shocking experiences for one day.
Well, here goes. It works! I made a computer! Unbelievable!
Good work, Tim. But it's not very useful, is it?
Oops, what about the software?
The software programs tell the microprocessor how to respond to your commands.
Oh, cool, I got a message. Tim, please don't forget to pick up my science homework. How did my science teacher get in my new computer? I mean, I just built the thing, for goodness sake. It's the software. It's gotta be bugged. I need a screwdriver.
Calm down, Tim. It's just following instructions. Mr. Peterson thought you needed a reminder, so he wrote a little software program for you.
Great. Got a science teacher who writes software.
Forget about Peterson. The interesting thing is how the microprocessor inside the computer processes the software's instructions.
It's time to go.
But I don't really know how computers work yet.
It's time to go.
Be patient, Tim. You've already learned some valuable things. You know that computers process information, that they have two kinds of memory, RAM and disk
And
drive.
I learned the hard way that computers don't think. They just follow the software's instructions.
Timothy, I am waiting.
This thing's starting to sound like my parents, but I better go before it schedules me for brain surgery again. Well, thanks for showing me all this cool stuff. Bye.
Bye.
See you.
Guess I tripped on an effect. This is gonna be even more fun than I thought. I know the parts of the computer now, but I want to find out more about the microprocessor. So hurry back, okay? You're back, at last. Well, anyway, we're actually ready to see how these things work and how they're made. Now, this is a microprocessor, and it's the main part of the computer. Well, actually, this is the microprocessor. The rest is a package that allows it to connect with the rest of the system. We'll see more about that on the other side. Oops, sorry. Okay, the question. How does a microprocessor work? This is weird. What is this place?
This, in fact, is not a place, but a symbolic manifestation of the computational operations as they occur within the microprocessor.
Give me a break.
A manifestation. A representation. It's a model to help you understand what happens inside a microprocessor.
But there's nothing happening.
Well, there's not. My memory chips must be melting. I forgot to load the software. I'll be right back. Ah, much better.
Now, who or what are these guys, and can you slow them down?
Well, it's your movie.
Oh, yeah. Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hello?
You asked how microprocessors work. Here is your answer.
These guys are gonna show me how a microprocessor works? These guys?
These guys, as you so delicately phrase it, represent the microprocessor's primary functions.
But they're just dummies.
I am so glad you're finally beginning to understand.
Okay. So these robot things are just following instructions. But why are they going so fast?
That's the beauty of a microprocessor. It's made up of millions of tiny switches, called transistors. Working together, these transistors can execute millions of instructions each second. At this point, you've slowed the model down at least 10,000 times.
But what are they doing?
A microprocessor has three primary functions: fetch, decode, and execute. Fetch only does one job. It retrieves program instructions and data, one at a time, and passes them on to decode.
But that's simple.
Exactly.
Hey, there's just a bunch of ones and zeros on those cards.
That's digital information, Timothy.
Digital information?
Numbers, really. That's the only kind of information a microprocessor can use.
But why are there only ones and zeros?
Because those are the only numbers the computer understands. It's called binary, base 2 numbers. Now, decode looks at the first 2 digits on the card.
I don't get this. Why does this guy have such an easy job?
But I thought I explained it rather well. Just last week, the International Order of Science Fiction fans came by. They seemed to enjoy it immensely.
But they're used to living on another planet. I'm having a hard time here.
Well, you could summon someone else to help you.
I could?
Try the retrieve button on your remote.
You are driving me crazy. Just because I helped you design this place, you think you can grab me every time some bunch of guys with pointy ears drops by for a visit. How am I supposed to get any work done?
So glad you could make it, Jack. Meet Tim. We were hoping, Jack, that you could explain our model.
So you're Tim, huh? Some guy named Peterson told me to remind you about your homework.
He did?
Jack is a senior design engineer. He develops new microprocessors.
Hey, cool t-shirt.
Oh, thanks. It's our latest creation. Archie's having a bit of trouble explaining things, huh?
Yeah, he's trying to help me understand. It's just, well, it's also weird.
Hey, believe me, you can get this. It's almost too simple. That's what hangs most people up.
Yeah, computers do complex things, but these guys just do the same things over and over and over again.
Computers are like factories that process information. These robots show how information is processed inside the microprocessor. The jobs look simple, but they happen millions of times a second.
So fetch feeds information into the microprocessor millions of times a second.
Isn't that what I said?
Well, excuse me, your archness. Sometimes humans need to look at things a couple different ways. So lay off.
Forgive me. I keep forgetting your limitations.
Yeah, just see if you can explain decode without messing it up.
Oh, all right, since you asked so nicely. Decode simply reads which operation is called for, and then...
This one means divide, right?
Do you make a habit of climbing on the furniture at home? You've interrupted the program.
Hey, it's just a manifestation, right? Yeah, that means divide.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cause any trouble. And these instructions are so simple. Why doesn't the code just remember them?
Decode has no memory. Computers don't learn from experience. They can only follow instructions. If you gave decode the same instruction 1,000 times, it would do exactly the same procedure 1,000 times.
Sounds pretty boring to me.
Machines do not know boring.
You can say that again.
Machines do not know.
So, what happens next?
Once decode finds out which operation is called for, it sends that information to the specified function in execute. Execute uses simple binary calculators, calculators that only read ones and zeros to do the math. Then they place the results back into memory.
So it's just simple math?
That's right. Microprocessors can only do math.
Let me make sure I got this right. Fetch picks up a bunch of numbers and passes it on to decode. Decode finds out what type of math is to be done with the numbers, and execute does the math. And this all happens millions of times a second.
That's right, though we call the numbers data.
But where does the data come from?
From people.
People write software that breaks very complex actions down into thousands of simple binary data instructions. Just typing a simple message like, Tim, don't forget your homework, requires the computer to follow thousands of instructions almost instantaneously.
Why do you keep bringing up my homework? And besides, what do a bunch of ones and zeros have to do with computer games, word processing, or animation?
When you're typing on your word processor, every dot that appears on the monitor is processed through fetch, decode, and execute. And so is every sound that comes from your speakers when you're playing a game. And even the animation that appears on your screen is just a combination of ones and zeros. What do you want?
Weren't you on your way to an appointment?
So your majesty no longer requires my presence. You transistorized body snatcher. Hope your fuzzy logic doesn't go on the blink again. Remember, kid, microprocessors do very simple math very quickly. And the numbers that they fetch, decode, and execute are the software instructions that make computers useful. Have a great trip. Gotta fly. I'm charging this sandwich to your account. Come on, kid, I haven't got all day. Send me flying.
Me? Me?
Who else? It's in your back pocket. Just hit the send button and hurry, I'm late. And the next time you need me, call first, okay?
Oh yeah, of course. Well, looks like we're gonna take a break now. Maybe you guys should ask some questions.
They're back.
Oh, hi. Well, I know there's gotta be digital information in here somewhere. I mean, people are always talking about how computers can only use digital information. But what is it? And what's it good for? Look at this. Nothing but a bunch of ones and zeros. It's gotta be some sort of code or something. And another thing. You always hear about digitizing things. How TVs and phones are all gonna be digital. But what does digital mean?
Are you asking a question?
Yeah, I guess it is. What's digital information?
Splendid.
Hey, who's in there?
Oh, it's just me!
Just who? You better come out right now.
Hi.
You must be Tim. My name's Natalie. I've been expecting you.
Why does that not surprise me?
Come on. Hey, I'm working on something really fun. A friend of mine just sent over some hilarious photos on the network so I could play with them.
That's great, Natalie. I'd love to see your pictures sometime, really. But I'm here to find out about digital information, and there's usually an engineer around here someplace. And, well, if you could help me find my machine. You know?
Just a second. Photography is my hobby. Engineering is my profession.
Oops.
I specialize in image compression. Now, you wanted to find out about digital information, right? Well, you've come to the right place. Okay, this will help explain things. You already know that computers can only do math, right?
Yeah.
Well, digital simply means numbers, and digital information is the kind of information computers use.
They use only ones and zeros, right? It's called binary. It's like a code.
Well, in a way, that's what it is. It's a code. Now, we can send photos over the network because the computers digitized them. It translated the images into numbers. Now, I can play with the photos and change them by simply changing the numbers.
So how do you change colors into numbers?
Well, that's a good question. First, let's make it simple. Now, I've assigned two numbers to this photo. 0 is black, 1 is white. A simple application of binary math, right?
I guess so. It looks familiar. What is it?
Well, don't worry about that right now. Let's zoom in on an area and see how the computer makes an image.
Hey, cool, little boxes.
Yeah, we call them pixels. A computer reproduces a photograph by breaking the image down into pixels and giving each pixel a number. The computer doesn't care what's being described on the monitor, text or pictures. All it does is assign a value to each pixel on the screen.
It's sort of like a pattern, but your photo didn't start out this way. It's ugly.
Oh, no, I just wanted to show you the pixels. Now we'll tell the computer to add all the color to the pixels.
Is it time for the code yet?
2 codes, actually. The first code converts the colors into numbers. It assigns a value between 0 and 255. Now, 0 is white, 255 is black, and every number in between is a different color. The second code converts that number to binary, a type of number that the computer understands. Well, here, I've written a little program that might help you.
Well, this one's blue, so the computer gives it a value of 170. But what's this?
Well, that's 170 written in binary. Each of those 8 digits is called a bit, the smallest unit of digital information.
So each time I change this number, the microprocessor calls up the color that that number represents. So what about letters and sounds and stuff like that?
Well, the computer can only understand the things that you can describe with numbers. Now, just like people gave this color a number, they also gave numbers to every letter, every punctuation mark, every sound, all the data you run through your computer. Each time you change a letter or a part of a picture on screen, the microprocessor inside the computer does a series of calculations to make the change. Well, look, we can even change the red pixels to green.
The photo looks even weirder in green. But I don't need to know the code for every letter and sound, do I?
No, because someone's already programmed that into the computer for you.
But what about people who write programs?
Well, most programmers use something that looks sort of like English. A program built into the computer converts it into a form that the computer understands.
Binary code.
Right. When you use a computer, many different software programs work together to break down your instructions into binary and then provide a response that you can understand.
You know, there's still this thing that I don't understand. Why binary? Why not just use the numbers we're used to?
Well, that has to do with the way the transistors on the microprocessor work. They're either on or off.
I suppose you're here because how a transistor works is another question.
That is correct. And to find the answer to that question, you may pass through door number 1.
Well, thanks. It's been fun, but, well, looks like my ride's here. Well, at least now I know how a microprocessor that only does math makes a computer useful. Now, what's that a picture of?
Oh, some kid wearing one of those backless hospital gowns who dropped into the computer systems lab the other day. Must have been some sort of wacko. They've been sending the photo out all over the network.
Let me see that.
Hey, that's my copy. I'll send you one over the network. Look, I really enjoyed meeting you, but next time, please use the front door, okay?
Tell that to Mr. Fuzzy Logic. Scary part is, I think I'm starting to like this. Oh no. Then again, maybe not. Guess it's time for another real life moment. Try not to be gone so long this time. Oops, I was making, some notes. Hey, it sure took your time getting back. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. There's no one to play with except for the machine. but we'll need him if we want to find out how transistors work. Are you ready? Okay. How do transistors work? Oh my gosh, it's Mr. Peterson! Get me out of here, quick!
Don't be frightened, Tim.
Not frightened, you idiot. It's Mr. Peterson. He's got my homework.
Oh, in that case.
Tim, my boy. Glad you could make it.
Hi, Mr. Peterson. How's it going? You know, you never told me you had a laboratory in your dungeon.
Spacious, isn't it? I guess I just outgrew my garage.
Yeah, it's beautiful, sir. Beautiful. So what you doing down here anyways?
Working nights, my boy. You know, a teacher's salary doesn't go very far these days. Besides, somebody had to deliver your homework assignments.
Oh, gee, thanks, Mr. Peterson. But I thought I was down here to, you know, meet someone who could tell me how transistors work.
And of course, you would never expect your science teacher to know about things like that.
Oh, no, it's not that. It's just, well...
It's okay,
I
Tim, I understand. Excuse me. This is Dan. He was in my class about
11 years ago.
Now, time flies. And now he's an electrical engineer.
I work on making transistors and other chip components smaller and smaller.
Dan and I have prepared a little demonstration for you.
The transistors on a microprocessor are simply switches that allow electrical currents to flow. Just like this switch, a transistor either completes a circuit representing a 1 or breaks it, representing a 0.
I'm deeply moved, sir.
This is just a simple circuit with a switch. Watch what happens when we replace the switch with a transistor.
Even more impressive.
Now wait, Tim. Take the wire from this extra battery and touch it to the transistor right here.
Hey, moderately cool.
The interesting thing about transistors is they don't have any moving parts. You activate them electrically. That's why they can be put into microprocessors.
A switch without any moving parts?
It's really just a matter of controlling the flow of electrons. Let me show you.
I'm not sure Tim really understands how atoms and electrons work yet, do you, Tim?
Was that a homework assignment?
Relax, Tim. You just need to know a few basics. In the center of every atom, there's a nucleus made of neutrons and protons. This nucleus is surrounded by rapidly rotating electrons.
Like moons around a planet?
More random than that. These electrons can even jump from atom to atom. That's how electricity flows. Some materials, like copper and silver, conduct electricity very well.
Their electrons jump around easily.
Right, they're conductive, but other materials are non-conductive. Their electrons resist jumping, so they don't conduct electricity.
Like rocks and wood and rubber and stuff like that.
Now, here's what's really interesting. We can change some materials that are normally non-conductive into conductors. Silicon is the best example.
Is that what semiconductor means?
Right. Semiconductors are materials whose conductivity can be changed.
So, how do we do that?
Well, take a look at this, Tim. This is a cross-section of a transistor. This layer going across here is silicon. This red part here is the source. It's where the wire from the battery comes in. The drain is here. That's where we attach the wire to the light bulb. And this is the gate. It's where you touch the third wire.
So, this wire changes something in the gate area?
That's right. But to see how it works, we have to take a look at what the atoms are doing. We know this gets a little dense, so we've prepared a visual aid. Tim, could you throw that switch for me?
Awesome.
Mr. Peterson was always a master with models, but he really outdid himself this time. He ran into a group of IOSFF conventioneers who were only too happy to volunteer. The people represent the atoms in a transistor. The balls are electrons. Now, the electrons in the silicon layer aren't jumping around too much, so the switch is off. To complete the circuit, the electrons have to find a way to flow between the source and the drain.
Well, how do we do that?
Tim, do you know how the poles of a magnet work?
Sure. The magnet's north pole attracts the south pole and vice versa. You know, opposites attract.
Well, a positive electrical charge has the same effect on negatively charged electrons. When we send a positive charge into the gate, it attracts the electrons in the silicon layer up into the area under the gate. This creates a channel of electrons between the source and the drain.
And the current starts flowing.
Right. It's almost like there's an electron traffic jam in the source. Once you open up a lane by adding the electric charge, the electrons start flowing.
Hey, a switch with no moving parts. That's pretty cool. But what I really want to know is, how do they put millions of these on a microprocessor?
Very carefully.
Another question? Thanks, Dan. And thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Now, wait, Tim, there was something I was supposed to give you. Now, what was it?
Great show, Mr. Peterson. Now I know how current flows through transistors. Switch with no moving parts. Wow.
Yes, of course. Your homework assignment.
Thanks, Mr. Peterson!
You're welcome.
Oh, man. How am I gonna find time to do all this stuff? I still need to find out how a microprocessor is made. Oh well. First things first. Not so hard, you could have killed me.
Well, you said you wanted to see how microprocessors are made.
Yeah, but you could use a little less enthusiasm next time.
Tim? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you.
It's okay. Looks like someone turned up the speed on this thing.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'll live. So, don't tell me, you're an engineer, right?
How'd you know? I'm a process engineer, to be exact. We develop and oversee the chip fabrication process. So, what do you think of the fab?
It's great. It's like a space station. I mean, there's the airlock and, well, suits and, I mean, just a bunch of really cool equipment.
It all seems pretty exciting at first. The fab looks like a space station because the air inside has to be kept incredibly clean. You can only have about 1 particle of dust per million parts of air. That's a lot cleaner than any hospital operating room.
Why?
There are more than 3 million transistors on each Pentium processor. That means that each transistor is 1/30th the width of a human hair. So if a tiny speck of dust falls onto its surface during fabrication, it's like rolling a boulder onto the circuits.
So, why do people have to wear these spacesuits?
We call them bunny suits. We wear them because our bodies shed dead skin and hair all day long. These suits even have fans to catch your breath before they get into circulation.
What's this?
That's part of an ingot. We use it to make microprocessors.
It's sort of big, isn't it?
We slice them really thin and machine it until we get wafers like this one. Now, these wafers are ready for the manufacturing process.
More than one chip fits on each wafer, though, right?
Oh, sure, dozens. It depends on the size of each specific chip.
Hey, this is heavy. What's it made of?
Silicon. It comes from sand, Tim.
Very funny. Electricity doesn't even run through sand.
Hurry up, Tim. My demonstration's melting.
What, are you nuts? Where's the fab? What, are you losing your transistors or something?
You will learn.
We're in a cafeteria, for crying out loud.
Tim,
Hi.
I'd like you to meet Larry.
Hey, Larry.
He's a process engineer who works with me in the fab.
He also teaches a class on chip fabrication. He has something you'll find very interesting.
Hey, dessert.
Think of it as flavored silicon.
No, I'm gonna call it dessert. I can't remember the last time I've eaten.
Actually, Tim, it's a prop I use in my class to show how transistors are made. And we were hoping you could help us out.
Prop. I hope you're hungry because you'll be our all-purpose etching machine.
First, though, I need to explain what this represents. This yellow layer represents the base layer of silicon as it comes into the fab. Just like the base of this real wafer, okay?
That's a semiconductor, right?
Right. And this thin red layer on top of it is made of silicon dioxide. We actually grow the silicon dioxide on the wafer, the same way that rust grows on iron.
Like rust on iron? Why don't you just leave it out in the rain?
We need more control, so we do it in a hot furnace filled with nearly pure oxygen. Silicon dioxide is non-conductive, so it's a very good insulator.
What's the green stuff?
That's a layer of polysilicon. It's the layer we'll be etching to form the transistor's gate.
And the whipped cream?
That's a photosensitive masking material.
Photosensitive?
Right. It protects parts of the polysilicon so that we can etch a pattern onto the wafer. First, we put a mask over the wafer and shine a light through it. The mask only allows the light to expose the photoresist in certain areas. I'm spraying blue water on these areas to show you where they've been exposed. The light changes the photoresist so that it will dissolve away when we soak the wafer in a developer solution. We don't have any developer here, Tim, and there's a lot of material to clear out. So let's see that spoon fly.
Really?
Go for it.
Great photoresist layer.
Looks good.
Yeah, but I'm still hungry.
Great, because you have more etching to do. Remember, the top layer was only here to protect the polysilicon from your spoon. Now it's time to remove the areas where the polysilicon has been exposed. So chow down.
How's that?
Not bad. Now you've etched the pattern into the polysilicon. The next step is to remove the rest of the photoresist layer. Oh, come on, Tim. There's always room for photoresist layer.
Couldn't eat another bite.
But it's wafer thin.
Ha ha ha.
Here, let me help you.
So the whole layer was just temporary?
Yep. It was there only to protect part of the polysilicon layer while the rest was eaten away to form the transistor. Essentially, that's what happens over and over again during wafer fabrication. Some of the latest chips have almost 20 layers filled with transistors like this.
Wow, that's a lot of dessert.
The Pentium processor has 3.2 million transistors.
Ta-da! Here's the finished transistor after the metal layer has been added.
Hey, wow, that's really cool. But if you were to make a chip this size out of the real materials, would it work?
No, that's what's great about transistors. They only work on a small scale. That's why you can put millions of them on a chip the size of your thumbnail, not to mention all their connections and a few other things as well.
Wow! So do you think we could get back to the fab now?
Your wish is my command.
Oh, yeah, right. Since when? Aren't you guys coming?
Afraid not. We've got work to do here, but it was nice meeting you.
Thanks for being a good sport about dessert, Tim. Oh, and don't forget your science homework.
Tell Peterson I'm working on it.
It's just that we're always looking for good engineers, so stick with it, okay?
Is that a job offer? Okay, great. See you in a few years.
Bye, Tim.
Bye, Tim.
Bye. What's next?
Timothy, as your science teacher, I must instill responsibility in all of my students. Your excuses for not completing your homework assignments for this term are unacceptable. I want your completed homework assignments on my desk by 9 a.m. Wednesday, nor I have to hold you back for another year. Do you hear me, Tim? No more excuses! No more excuses! No more excuses!
No! I was living a nightmare. I thought Mr. Peterson would give me a break on my homework, but he was being a real dweeb. I had 5 days to finish the whole term's worth of assignments. I worked non-stop that whole weekend. Sunday afternoon, I had things under control. Or so I thought. Peterson had saved the best for last. A 2,000-word essay on the computer revolution. What revolution? Nobody had even gotten shot. I mean, that's 5 whole pages and no triple spacing. I must have been absent that day. Well, either that or I slept through the whole thing. I mean, I like computers as much as the next kid. When Peterson rambles on about the information age or the wonders of semiconductors, I start yawning. Shut up. It was Paul Ceruzzi from Comic Central. He'd been after my mint copy of Silver Surfer #2 for weeks now. He worked at the Smithsonian, a big history museum downtown. Wait a minute. Smithsonian? Computers? Revolutions? Maybe there was something he could swap for my Surfer after all. My plan worked. I just might escape Peterson's ambush. I caught the metro downtown. Paul was waiting for me just like he promised. He got the Surfer, and I got the story. Here I am. Paul put the whole thing into perspective for me. Computers, they're not boxes that sit on desks. And microprocessors, well, they're basically a computer all on a single silicon chip. And they're everywhere. So, I decided to show Mr. Peterson exactly what happened when kids got their hands on a little technology. Well, here's my report. Power of digital.
It's no longer surprising to say that computers are everywhere. I mean, not only are they in the obvious places like on a desktop in an office or in a video game, but they're everywhere else too. They're embedded into appliances. Even the camera you're playing with has a chip in it, Tim. Now, what happens when a technology like this becomes so widespread in society? A revolution happens. And how do we know that? Because it's happened before. In 1456, Johannes Gutenberg perfected a way of printing with movable type to make it easier to print Bibles. Before that time, books had to be copied by hand. They were very rare, and they cost more than a whole farm. But within 50 years, printing presses were all over Europe, and tens of thousands of books flooded the continent. And guess what? Most of them were not Bibles. These books unleashed the human imagination. Ideas spread like wildfire. People read the ancient Greek and Roman writers. They shared new ideas on art, science, and politics. Governments were powerless to stop these ideas. So you see, Tim, Gutenberg developed a technology to print books more cheaply. That sparked a revolution in the way societies communicate and exchange ideas. And that changed the world.
Today, we have libraries full of books, and we take it for granted. Could you imagine a world without comic books?
Gutenberg didn't invent books. He developed a way to print books. And Henry Ford didn't invent automobiles. He created a way to mass produce the Model T, a car that was inexpensive and of very high quality. The first cars were handmade, one at a time, and they were very expensive. By making cars inexpensive enough so that anyone could afford them, Henry Ford changed the world. In a sense, the whole world shrank. It gave us all kinds of things that we never could have anticipated, like highways, motels, traffic signals, traffic cops, all kinds of things, all because of the Model T.
Hey, you never know where technology will lead. I mean, imagine what the world would be like without cars.
When a powerful technology like printing presses or automobiles becomes widely available, society reaches a critical threshold. I don't know if filling the planet with millions of cars was a good idea, but there's no turning back now. Once enough people start using a technology, it changes the world forever. People live differently, they work differently, they even think differently. When a technology first appears, no one really knows what direction it's going to go in. But one thing we do know, and that's that those who learn to use the technology are the ones who are going to determine its future. Okay, Tim, the telephone's another good example. Alexander Graham Bell, the guy who invented it, thought it would be used for things like broadcasting music into the home. He never thought that people would use it to make calls from one telephone to the other because he thought the wiring would be too complicated. But then the switchboard was invented, which allowed you to do just that, connect every phone to every other phone. And before you knew it, everybody wanted telephones to make calls to each other. It sounds so obvious today, but it was really remarkable back then. In fact, we take all this so much for granted that we can't imagine that this brilliant man, Alexander Graham Bell, didn't foresee this use of the telephone.
I'll miss my surfer. But Paul had a lot of great information, and if it gets me out of Peterson's class, it's gotta be a great deal.
Today, computers have brought us to another critical threshold. First computers were handmade, one at a time. They were very expensive. Only federal government or large corporations could afford them. But with the invention of the microprocessor, all that changed. Microprocessors are mass-produced. They're small, they're cheap, but they have a tremendous amount of power. This one, for example, has more power than this ENIAC, which is the world's first computer. And you're only seeing just a part of it. This machine filled a whole room. And it took dozens of people to operate it and took half the power of the city of Philadelphia to power it up. And that's all inside this chip right here, the microprocessor. The printed book allowed us to share ideas as never before. The mass-produced car let us travel like never before. The telephone let us communicate as never before. And the microprocessor is going to affect all those things and more in ways that we can't even begin to imagine. That's where you come in, Tim, because it's your generation that's going to make all that happen.
Just goes to show what happens when technology falls in the right hands, like ours. While Peterson's still trying to program his VCR, we'll be playing with virtual reality and multimedia. But if I ever want to graduate, I gotta get this report to Peterson, like, right now. There's no telling where the computer revolution will end up. That's up to us. But you know what? I think it'll be fun getting there. Catch you later.